Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our English Learning Podcast. I'm Agnes, and today we're diving into a fascinating topic that's going to add so much flavor and fun to your English skills.
And I'm Jasper. Hello, everyone. We're thrilled to have you with us today. Now, Agnes, what are we talking about today? I know it's something that can take English from just basic to beautiful in the way we express ourselves.
Yes, Jasper. Today's topic is idioms, those quirky, fun, and sometimes puzzling expressions that English speakers love to use. The title of today's episode is How to Learn English Idioms. Doesn't that sound exciting? Idioms are like the secret spice in the language that can make conversations much more interesting and colorful.
Oh, absolutely. I love idioms. They're those phrases that might sound strange at first, but once you understand them, they make speaking English a lot more natural and engaging. I mean, saying it's raining cats and dogs sounds way more lively than just saying it's raining a lot, right?
Exactly, Jasper. And the great thing about idioms is that they can make you sound more like a native speaker. Plus, idioms are used everywhere in movies, books, conversations, even in songs. So, understanding idioms is a big part of understanding the culture behind the language.
Definitely. And for those of you who are learning English, especially at the elementary or intermediate levels, don't worry if idioms seem tricky. They can be confusing at first, but once you get the hang of a few, they'll start making a lot more sense.
Yes, and we'll walk you through it step by step. We're going to explore some popular idioms today, explain what they mean, and give you examples of how they're used. By the end of this podcast, you'll feel more comfortable using idioms in your own conversations.
That sounds like a plan, so thank you to everyone tuning in. We really appreciate you being here and working on your English with us. Now, Agnes, where should we start on this journey into the world of idioms?
Let's start with the basics. Jasper, we'll talk about what an idiom really is, why they're used, and then go into some common ones you might hear every day. First off, an idiom is a phrase where the words together mean something different than the individual words. It's almost like a little code or puzzle in the language.
That's right. For example, if I say, it's a piece of cake, I don't mean an actual cake, of course. I mean that something is really easy to do. So, knowing idioms isn't just about understanding words. It's about knowing the whole meaning that the phrase suggests.
Exactly, and learning idioms is also important because native speakers use them all the time. It's a natural part of how people communicate. So, if you want to feel more confident in conversations or understand movies and shows better, idioms are definitely worth learning.
And let's face it, idioms are just fun. They add humor, color, and personality to our conversations. I mean, who doesn't want to throw around phrases like break a leg or bite the bullet, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of which, why don't we jump into a few examples and break down what they mean? How about we start with break a leg, since it's such a fun one?
Good idea. So, break a leg is something people say when they want to wish someone good luck. It sounds funny, right? Because you're not really telling someone to break their leg. Instead, it's a way to say, do your best or good luck. Especially when someone is about to perform on stage or do something challenging.
Exactly, Jasper. And isn't that interesting? When we say it to someone, it's actually a very positive and encouraging phrase, even though it sounds a bit strange. And people use it all the time, especially in theater, music, or before a big presentation.
Yes, it's a very common one. Here's another classic. Bite the bullet. This means to face something difficult or unpleasant that you can't avoid. So, if you have to do something you don't really want to do, like studying for a big exam, you might say, I guess I have to bite the bullet and start studying.
That's a good one, Jasper. Bite the bullet is a way of saying, get on with it, even if it's hard. It's about being brave and facing the challenge, even when you don't feel like it. And it's phrases like these that help people communicate ideas more vividly.
They do, and once you get used to them, they're quite memorable. How about we go over one more idiom before we wrap up this part, just to give our listeners a bit more practice?
Great idea, Jasper. Let's try hit the nail on the head. This one is used when someone says something that is exactly right or accurate. So, if someone makes a good point in a discussion, you might say, wow, you really hit the nail on the head.
Yes, it's a fantastic way to say, you're absolutely right. Or, that's exactly correct. It's very satisfying to use because it means you've understood something perfectly.
And with that, I think our listeners are off to a great start with these idioms. We'll continue exploring more idioms as we go along.
Exactly, Agnes. And I think it's safe to say that understanding idioms like hit the nail on the head really helps build confidence. When you can recognize and use idioms, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're understanding a bigger picture of how people think and communicate. It's almost like unlocking a new level of English, don't you think?
Absolutely, Jasper. Idioms are like little windows into the culture. They show us how people describe things in creative ways and how humor or even wisdom can be hidden in just a few words. Let's dive into a few more idioms that people might hear in everyday conversation so they can recognize them when they come up. What's a good one to start with?
How about a blessing in disguise? This one's interesting because, when you hear it, you might think, how can a blessing be in disguise? But it's really about something that seems bad or challenging at first, but turns out to be something good in the end.
Right? It's like when you miss a bus, but end up having an incredible day because of the unexpected change in your plans. You could say that missing the bus was a blessing in disguise. It's all about finding the good in things that don't look so positive at first.
Exactly, Agnes. And I love how this idiom encourages us to look for the silver lining in tough situations. Sometimes, life throws us curveballs, and idioms like these remind us that things aren't always what they seem at first glance. Here's another that's a bit similar in meaning. Every cloud has a silver lining.
Yes, that's a good one. Every cloud has a silver lining means that even difficult situations have something positive or hopeful hidden within them. It's a way of saying that no matter how dark things look, there's usually something good that can come out of it. It's a beautiful way to stay optimistic.
Absolutely. And isn't it interesting how these idioms, even though they use very different words, actually convey a similar positive message? Now, every cloud has a silver lining might sound poetic, but it's something you'll hear people use casually in conversations, especially when they're trying to cheer someone up or remind them to stay hopeful.
Right? And that's the beauty of idioms. They're these powerful expressions that can convey so much meaning with so few words. Here's another good one that might sound unusual at first. The ball is in your court.
Oh, that's a classic. When someone says, the ball is in your court, it means it's your turn to make a decision or take action. It comes from sports, like tennis or basketball, where players take turns hitting the ball. In conversation, it's used to show that the next step or choice is up to you.
Yes, exactly. So if you're in a conversation and someone says, the ball's in your court, it's a nice way of saying, okay, now it's up to you to decide. It's often used in situations where there's been a back and forth exchange, and now the decision-making responsibility has shifted to one person.
And what's fun is that idioms like the ball is in your court can make a conversation feel more engaging and relatable because they bring in these little metaphors from real-life activities. It's like turning language into a kind of storytelling tool.
Exactly. And storytelling, as we know, makes language so much more memorable. Here's one more that's really common in English, especially when people want to encourage someone. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Good one. Don't put all your eggs in one basket means that you shouldn't risk everything on a single plan or idea. If you put all your eggs in one basket and something goes wrong, you could lose everything. It's a way of advising someone to keep their options open and not rely too heavily on one thing.
Exactly, Jasper. So if you're investing in something or planning your career, this idiom is a good reminder to diversify and be cautious. And like all these idioms, it's based on an everyday experience that people can relate to, which makes it easy to remember.
Absolutely, Agnes. And idioms like these help us convey advice or even life lessons in a friendly, memorable way. It's like sharing wisdom, but in a fun, relatable form. They help English learners not only understand language better, but also communicate in a way that feels genuine and full of life.
Exactly. And for all of you listening, remember that learning idioms is a process. You don't need to know them all at once. Start with a few, practice using them, and soon they'll feel natural. It's one of those things that truly adds a lot of personality to your English skills.
That's such a great point, Agnes. Learning idioms isn't just about memorizing words. It's really about adding personality to your English. Imagine being able to jump into a conversation and say something like, "The ball's in your court," or "It's a blessing in disguise," and people just get what you mean. It's like you're speaking the same language on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And what's so wonderful is that idioms help us sound more natural. They give language this colorful touch, right? They can make a simple sentence sound richer, almost like painting with words. I think it's also why idioms are sometimes tricky. They don't always mean what they literally say, so it's like learning a little puzzle each time.
Yes, exactly. And it's normal for English learners to feel a bit confused at first. Idioms are kind of like mini mysteries you have to figure out what the expression really means. But once you do, it can be so satisfying. And a lot of idioms have these fun, visual images, like a piece of cake or spill the beans. These phrases might make you smile, even if you don't fully get them right away.
Totally. Speaking of visual, imagine you hear someone say, "It's raining cats and dogs." Now, that would be confusing if you tried to picture it literally, right? But all it means is that it's raining really heavily. It's one of those idioms that just sticks with you because of the funny image it creates. Plus, it's used all the time in English.
Exactly. "It's raining cats and dogs" is so memorable because of that silly image. And here's the interesting part. Idioms like this aren't only helpful for speaking and listening. They also pop up in movies, music, books, even advertisements. So, knowing these expressions can really help people understand more of what they see and hear every day.
Right? And that's especially true for entertainment. Think about how many movies or TV shows use idioms, even in titles or taglines. When you know idioms, it's like you're getting the full picture rather than missing a joke or an idea. It brings you closer to understanding not just the language, but also the humor and the emotions behind it.
Yes, and humor is such a big part of idioms. Sometimes, people use idioms just to be funny, like saying someone has cold feet when they're nervous about something. It's a playful way of expressing ideas without being too direct. And because idioms add this layer of playfulness, they make conversations more enjoyable.
I love that one, cold feet. It's such a funny and indirect way to say someone's nervous. Like, if someone's about to get on stage, but they suddenly feel scared, we'd say they're getting cold feet. It's gentle, but also very visual, and it shows how language can be both practical and fun at the same time.
Exactly. And idioms also let us talk about emotions in a more relatable way. For example, if you say, "I'm feeling under the weather," people will know you're not feeling well even if you don't give every detail. It's a softer way to express yourself, and people appreciate that kind of subtlety in conversations.
Yes, And I think idioms also show that language is about connection. They're these phrases that people can share, understand, and relate to. When you use an idiom correctly, it's like saying, I understand how people talk, and I'm part of this conversation. It brings people closer together.
That's such a good point, Agnes. Idioms are almost like little bridges between people. And when learners start using idioms, it's amazing to see how it can boost their confidence. It's like they're stepping into a new world of communication. They're not just speaking English, they're connecting on a deeper level.
Yes, and I think that's why it's so satisfying when you finally understand an idiom or use it correctly. It's one of those little victories in language learning that makes you feel like you're truly progressing. And that sense of achievement keeps you motivated to learn more.
Absolutely. And the best part, there are idioms for so many situations. Whether you're talking about work, family, friendships, or even dreams, there's usually an idiom that captures the feeling or idea perfectly. It's like having a special phrase for every part of life.
Exactly. Like, think about work or school situations. If you're putting in a lot of effort, you might say you're burning the midnight oil, meaning you're staying up late to work hard. It's a great way to express dedication without simply saying, I'm working hard.
Or if you're trying to stay calm in a tense situation, you might hear someone say, keep your cool. It's such a simple phrase, but it conveys the idea of staying calm under pressure in a way that feels casual and approachable. It's like a reminder to stay level-headed.
Right? And it's something that's used all the time in English, both in casual and serious conversations. Knowing idioms like these really helps you understand what people mean in different contexts. They're such an essential part of feeling comfortable and confident with English.
Exactly. So for anyone listening, don't be afraid to start using idioms. It's okay if you make a few mistakes along the way. That's how you learn. Remember, language is all about experimenting and connecting. And idioms are one of the best tools to make your English feel lively and natural.
Exactly, Jasper. I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of learning idioms. It's like adding a dash of personality to your conversations. When you use an idiom, you're not just speaking words. You're expressing a feeling, painting a picture, or even sharing a little story. It's what makes language feel alive, like it's not just a tool, but an art.
Oh, I love that thought, Agnes. Idioms are so much like mini stories, little snapshots of culture, humor, and life lessons all wrapped up in just a few words. They add such richness to conversations and really help us connect. It's almost like giving people a glimpse into the culture behind the language, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you think about it, every idiom carries a story with it, or a kind of wisdom that's been passed down through generations. That's why I think learning idioms is like unlocking a treasure chest of cultural knowledge. And for anyone learning English, it's such a fun way to understand not just the language, but the people who speak it.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't have to be perfect right away. I think some learners feel like they have to know every idiom perfectly or be fluent in all of them. But it's really about enjoying the process, right? Trying them out, maybe even laughing when you mix them up, and gradually building confidence as you go along.
Yes, trying them out and having fun with them is the key. Think of it this way: every time you use an idiom, it's a little step closer to fluency and comfort in English, and it's okay to make mistakes. Often, native speakers will find it charming and engaging when someone learning the language makes the effort to use idioms, even if it's not perfect.
Exactly. And that's the thing about language, it's meant to bring people together, to make us feel connected. I think idioms do that in such a unique way. They're relatable, they're expressive, and they can often say what words alone can't capture. So, for anyone listening, don't feel intimidated. Jump in, play with idioms, and make them your own.
Well said, Jasper. And there's one more tip I think could be really helpful for learners. When you're watching movies, listening to songs, or even reading articles, try to keep an ear or eye out for idioms. Jot them down if you hear something interesting. And don't worry about getting the meaning instantly. Just give yourself a little time, look it up later, and start using it when you feel ready.
Yes, that's a great tip. Media is filled with idioms, and it's one of the best ways to see how they're used naturally. Sometimes, hearing an idiom in context makes it stick with you better than if you just read it on a list. So, whether it's in a movie, a TV show, or even a song, exposure to idioms will make them feel more familiar over time.
And if you're someone who likes to write, even something like a journal or a personal diary, try adding a few idioms there. Writing them down in sentences that feel natural to you can really help reinforce your memory. It's one of those little things that can make a big difference.
Exactly. And Agnes, I'd say that's an ace up your sleeve, a handy secret. When you make an idiom your own, it's like you're adding a unique tool to your language toolkit, something that will make your English truly stand out.
I couldn't agree more, Jasper. And for all our listeners, remember, every small step counts. You're already on this journey of learning English, and incorporating idioms is just the next exciting chapter. So give yourself credit, and don't be afraid to take that leap into the world of idioms.
Yes, and enjoy the journey. Language learning is such a rewarding experience, and idioms are one of those things that make it even richer and more fun. So, whether you're testing the waters or going the extra mile, just know that every effort brings you closer to expressing yourself naturally.
Beautifully said, Jasper. And to everyone who's been with us today, thank you for joining this conversation. We truly hope it's given you some helpful tips and, hopefully, a little more confidence in trying out English idioms. We're cheering you on.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. It's been wonderful sharing these insights and tips, and we hope you feel ready to start sprinkling idioms into your English conversations. Just remember, language is about connection, so have fun with it.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, keep practicing, and don't forget to enjoy every step along the way. English is a beautiful language, and with idioms, it's even more expressive and colorful.
And on that note, we're sending our very best wishes to each of you on your language journey. May you find joy, success, and many new friends as you learn. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone. Keep learning and stay inspired. We'll see you next time.